that, I don't think JT Tuimoloau, maybe only, I didn't see what 11 Warriors had for the snap counts on him, but he may have only played one series. And then I don't think Tyreek Williams played at all. And you add those two guys into the mix, they're both all Big Ten. So it's kind of like the front's going to set the tone. The back is going to, if a team does get in the red zone, they're going to have to settle for 3 because they're not going to complete a pass for a touchdown. Very rarely. I mean, it's going to happen. Somebody is going to score points against this defense. Inevitably, it's going to happen. But when you can hold the opponent to 10, 14, 17 points, maybe 20, 21 in one of these high leverage games, whatever it turns out to be, you have taken so much pressure off the quarterback, whoever it is, Howard, Brown, Sayin, whoever it turns out to be, and the rest of the offense. They don't have to be letter perfect. They just have to be good, borderline great. And I think there's enough playmakers on that offense that, to me, it was great to see Egbuka, who kind of finished the season on a down note, come back and, with some injury issues in the second half of the season, for him to come back and make 4 catches in this game, as meaningless as it was, just shows, hey, when the real bullets start flying, this guy's going to be getting 7, 8, 9 balls a game. And this is going to be – he's going to set the tone, I think, for this offense. So there is so much out there for this team that they could accomplish, again, if the offensive line comes together. And, again, I don't want to harp on it. I don't want to kill anybody. I want it to be all positive and everything, but I think it's got to get rectified one way or the other. And I think between Chip Kelly, Fry, Day, Hartline, they're going to get to the heart of the matter. They're going to figure this thing out. And, if they have to go get somebody, crack some eggs, hey, that's what happens. So, this is big boy football. You've settled for second best for 3 years in a row. It's time for the bull crap to be over with and get back on top of college football and top of the Big Ten, certainly beat Michigan. And it's time. I was asked, I did a show in Oregon today, like, is he on a hot seat? No, he's got a long-term contract, although he has a new athletic director. And, he's not going anywhere. 11 wins, 3 years in a row. Not what anybody really is looking for, but, the great recruiting continues. He's surrounded by an all-star team of assistant coaches, and it's time. It's time to hit it back up in the top of college football, the real top of college football. And, let's see, let the chips fall where they may this fall.
Ryan Dawes, thank you so much for being here, man. We appreciate your contribution, sir. This is for all the great work, guys. Thank you, Ryan.
Notice he gave it to us when Tony's gone, so I'm just saying.
Yes. Ryan wasn't saying that last week, was he?
No. I've been texting Tony. I'm telling him what he's missing.
Big tone.
All right.
I mean, I want to dovetail off of Steve's comments just about, this is the year to go for it all. I mean, because we've all said that if Ohio State has a great year, it's going to be a mass exodus before 25. It's still going to be a mass exodus largely just based on having a bunch of guys coming back to run it back for one more year. So the roster is kind of set where you need it. You have made those coaching changes that you need to. I mean, Ryan Day has finally yielded play calling responsibilities, and we knew it was going to take a special situation, and who better than his mentor in Chip Kelly to be that guy. I would hate to see Ohio State go the path of the Dodgers, who refused to get a good bullpen guy, only to watch seasons fall apart where they win 107 games along the way and then lose in the first round of the playoffs. I'd hate to see Ohio State make all of these masterful offseason moves, get Caleb Downs, get Julian Sayin, get Seth McLaughlin, everything else, get here to this point, and then get outbid for the one piece that they need to cross that finish line. And that spot is offensive line. Again, as I said, whether or not you think they need 1, 2, guard, tackle, whatever that may be, I would like to say that with 3 years of disappointments of not being in Indianapolis, not hoisting that Big Ten trophy, not getting the ring, that there is an awareness that you can't keep doing the same thing. And everything that we had seen from the end of that Cotton Bowl game up to the end of the spring game, nothing has led me to believe that they are going to be going into the season stupid. So I do expect them to make those moves necessary to fill out the rest of the roster to get it to where it needs to be to win the long run of the season. To the point of Steve being on the show in Oregon and Ryan Day being on the hot seat. I mean, you can look at it logically and say no, but I think if you look at it emotionally, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to say yes.
Yeah. No doubt. And I think a lot of that is the way Ohio State fans are kind of born and bred, that only one thing matters, and that's beating Michigan. And in this, and, it's still vitally important, and you can't take that for granted. You lost to them 3 years in a row, but the way things are trending, Michigan seems like I would say the least of their worries, but not as big of a worry as it has been the last several years. So again, don't take it for granted. Work it. As Urban Meyer used to say, you work that game 365 days a year. Every day you got to do something to help you beat the team up north. So I want to see it.
Well, Ryan Day was making points during the broadcast as he was being chided to talk about, how close is this team and what do they need to do. And of course, he was talking about one play and one drive. And then I saw a lot of Michigan fans and Michigan sites really harping on that, picking that to
that 20-point play.
The 20-point play. However, I stuck up for the head coach because I think, because I saw one article in particular that was dissecting the number of minutes and seconds, who was in the lead for this many minutes and seconds. Okay. In 2023, they get the ball down to the 35-yard line at the end of the game. Okay. That could be a one-play deal. They win 31-30. They're the number 1 seed, 12-0 in the playoff. The year before, obviously, forget what happened against Michigan. They beat Georgia. They win the national championship, regardless of what happened against Michigan. To pick apart what Ryan Day had to say when he's just talking about in general, we are right there. We just need to push it across the finish line. So cut the guy a little slack there. All right. I may just completely botch that handle, so I won't even attempt. I don't know what we're going for there, but we so much appreciate the contribution there. Is that $34 million number Barstool's posted real?
Well, we've seen the coaching numbers, so we can add up the numbers of what they're spending on coaching salaries, and so that is known. I think it's a little bit more cloudy trying to really know what the dollar figure is for what it costs to maintain and put together a roster, whether or not we're talking like NIL money for transfers or retention. We all heard the number that Ryan Day gave at one point, that it would be like $13 million to assemble the team. I don't know exactly the math that Barstool used to get to the number, but I don't think it's necessarily that far off. I don't have the ability to look under the hood, but one of the parts of the equation is a known. We have gotten through public record searches what the salaries are of the assistant coaches and everything else. So we know part of the equation, but I don't think anybody for certain knows to the dollar, or even rounding it to like the nearest 1,000, what the numbers are specifically with the players. But it sure makes for a fun story.
There you go, folks.
Yeah, we can't provide an itemized list of the, it's not like USA Today on opening day when they used to post all 25 guys on every team's roster, what they make. You can't do that anymore. You've never been able to do it, but you certainly can't do it for college football because all these NIL funds going to these players are all confidential. I mean, the collectives aren't reporting it, the schools aren't reporting it, the players aren't reporting it. I'm going to be very honest with you. This is kind of crazy, but heard of a school where they went out. This is a basketball school. They went out and got a transfer to come in and slotted him in at a certain amount for NIL. And one of the guys who had already announced he was coming back went in and said that this guy's going to take my minutes, and he's also going to make more NIL than I am, and I may have to put myself in the portal now. And he'd already announced that he was coming back, but because the coach is trying to build a championship roster, he's now ruffled the feathers of one of his returning players. So, this is the world that we live in 2024, when somebody's word that they're coming back is no good, not good at all. And, everybody is living minute to minute on these things, on what their status is with the college program. I told somebody who told me that story that I'm 56 years old, and I am so glad that I am within X number of years of retirement, because, and I'm on the outside trying to track all this stuff. Just imagine putting yourself in Ryan Day's shoes, and Jeremiah Smith announces he's coming to Ohio State, but doesn't send the letter in for 10 more hours because they don't have everything exactly quite down, I's dotted, T's crossed. And it's just like, Jesus criminy, what is this world that we're living in? But, this is, again, I say this every week, this is the world that they brought on themselves when they didn't solve the problems properly that they had within this model. So, whatever.
It's a player's market at that point. And the thing is, you're not signing people to contracts. I mean, if there were actual legal contracts on like NIL, like, okay, I'm accepting that I'm going to make $600,000 a year for 3 years or whatever. I mean, it would be a lot harder to then come back and be like, oh, well, I just found out that little Timmy over there is making $650. I want to renegotiate or whatever. So the whole thing is so loosey-goosey, willy-nilly, that things are going to always change and evolve, and we're going to see names through, every year until things are, solidified a little bit more of, oh, well, I thought so-and-so was going back to such and such school. Well, no, there was a breakdown in financial talks, and that's just what's going to happen. And I don't know. I mean, I don't want to hijack the show, but I'm sure everybody saw the leaked pitch deck of the 70 team super divisions and everything else, and that wanted to take scholarship numbers down to like 70, and cap the rosters at 85 and have 70 scholarships, and you're still playing 17 games. That was one of the most insane things that I'd ever seen. There's more money than ever available to do these things. Don't be a bunch of greedy SOBs and limit the number of available, spots for athletes to be able to be compensated and do this. I was just really put off when I read that pitch deck. I mean, plus two, it just goes back to it. Ohio State would be back playing in an old school Big Ten, but only worse. The couple of exciting trips that we have would no longer be divisional games, and we would add Cincinnati, which, don't get me wrong, I like going down to the Queen City, but I don't really need to to go down there for football games.
Yeah, that 70 team thing is like, as pie in the sky as anything you've ever heard of, because what we've created are halves with the 18 teams in the SEC and the 18 teams in the Big Ten, and then some kind of halves with the ACC and the Big 12, and then everybody else is a total and complete have-not. And the halves are not mixing in with the kind of halves. They're just not going to do that. They're not giving money back so that Wake Forest and Texas Tech can feel good about being major college football programs. They're not doing that. They're distancing themselves from Wake Forest and Texas Tech as quickly as they possibly can. So they're going to be paying players, whereas those schools a certain level, whereas those schools will be paying players at a much 10%, 20% on the dollar type level. So, whatever the model ultimately turns out to be. But yeah, there's no 70 team Super League. There's no socialism in this thing. It's straight capitalism, straight money. And, we've identified the 36 haves and the 105 have-nots. So,
well, I mean, it's to the
it ain't
point.
going back.
Yeah, it's to the point that you either have to go one of a couple ways. You either have to go to where you have a salary cap and a salary basement, and you just have straight up communist sports right there. Or if you have it to where, okay, well, we're going to give you like a minimum spending threshold. You've got to spend at least X amount on football operations or whatever. With 70 teams, you're going to have 30 teams out there that are going to, to borrow a phrase from NASCAR, are going to start and park. They're going to participate, spend the minimum, and pocket the rest. And that is, I mean, we're not cutting away the chaff from the wheat. I mean, it's not realistic. And I'm sorry that if you've been a team that has been able to compete for a national championship for 100 plus years and have won 0 national championships and have gone to like 6 bowl games in program history or whatever, it sucks to suck. I mean, it is what it is. And I know that there'll be alumni of, sucks to suck you that don't like my answer, but if we're trying to sit there and create a more streamlined, financially tenable situation, if you can't compete, then you don't need to play.
Some of those halves have been deemed halves, though, just based on association. So we've got some halves in the SEC, and we have even more halves, in quotes, in the Big Ten that are the Illinois and Indianas. What have they done? What are they contributing that's any better than the Kansas States and Oklahoma States of the world?
They all have to answer questions, in my opinion. I think that the reality is everybody talks about this as blowing up conferences or whatever. You can take football away from the equation, and you can maintain the Big Ten and the SEC and the Big 12 and whatever, the American, go on and go on and go on. You only have to sit there and move football. Now, so much of conference membership is derived from your football affiliation, but let's think outside the box a little bit. And okay, it's great that the Big Ten has been around forever and a day. They're going to just be sorry, Northwestern. You had a great run in 23 under David Braun, and I think most of Big Ten land was cheering for you, unless you were playing against, they were playing against Northwestern at that point. But you're probably not set up to compete in whatever a real super league is going to be. Plus, you're also playing at your practice facility for a couple of years. Bring your own chairs, so you're immediately disqualified with that whole mess. But no, there are going to be teams that are. I think that there are going to be teams that are going to be disappointed that and angry that they're left out, and there'll probably be lawsuits, and that's probably going to be one of the things that's going to hold up, a move towards sanity. But it is what it is.